I want to state, for the official record, that I filed 3 separate safety complaints before we ever boarded the transport. 3. Each one was professionally worded, thoroughly researched, and completely ignored. My name is Zixathar, 4th degree honor student at the Galactic Union Defense Academy, and I am approximately 6 hours away from what I can only describe as institutionally sanctioned suicide. The briefing room hummed with nervous energy, or maybe that was just my species' natural bioluminescence flickering with anxiety. 200 cadets packed into tiered seating, representing 47 different species from across the Union. We were the best and brightest. Supposedly, the survivors of 3 grueling years of tactical training, xenobiology studies, and survival simulations. Simulations being the critical word. Admiral Crossenith stood at the podium, her forearms clasped behind her back in what was meant to be a reassuring posture. It wasn't working. Cadets, her translation device rendered her chittering into standard. Your final evaluation will take place on Thoros Prime. The room erupted, not in cheers. Thoros Prime? Someone shouted from the back. That's a Class-3 Deathworld. Class 2.8, technically, the Admiral corrected, as if that decimal point made any difference. Recently downgraded after geological surveys confirmed reduced volcanic activity. Reduced? I heard myself say, louder than intended. Admiral, with respect, reduced volcanic activity still means there is volcanic activity. On a planet where the ambient temperature exceeds the boiling point of Cadet Zixathar, her compound eyes fixed on me. Your concerns are noted. However, the Union military operates in hostile environments regularly. This evaluation is designed to test your readiness for field deployment. Field deployment doesn't usually mean dropping unarmed cadets onto planets that actively want to kill them. I muttered. The human 3 seats down from me laughed. Actually laughed. I turned to look at him properly for the first time. Marcus Chen, according to his nameplate. Short dark hair, medium build, with that characteristic forward-facing predator gaze that always made me uncomfortable. He was leaning back in his seat like we were discussing weekend plans, not our potential deaths. Something amusing? I asked, my translator probably adding more edge than I intended. Just nostalgic. Marcus said with a shrug. Thoros Prime sounds a lot like the colony where I grew up. We called it character building. Your colony was on a Class-3 Deathworld. Class 4, actually. But who's counting? He grinned, showing an uncomfortable number of teeth. This is my life now, I thought. Partnered with a human who thinks Deathworlds are quaint. The Admiral continued, oblivious to my internal crisis. You will be divided into 4 cadet teams. Each team will have 7 days to reach the extraction point, located approximately 150 kilometers from your drop zone. You will have standard survival gear, 1 emergency beacon to be used only in life-threatening situations, and your training. Standard survival gear, I repeated to myself. On Thoros Prime, teams have been assigned based on compatibility profiles and skill diversity. The Admiral's translator carried what might have been amusement. Team designations are now available on your datapads. You have 2 hours to meet your team and prepare for departure. The room emptied in a controlled panic. I pulled up my datapad with trembling manipulator appendages. Team 7, Zixathar Velkarian. Squad Leader Marcus Chen, Human. Survival Specialist Shara Crystallis. Environmental. Analyst Click Dexcore. Communications, Scout Squad Leader. Of course they made me Squad Leader, because nothing says natural authority like someone who filed 3 safety complaints. I found my team at the designated assembly point in Hangar Bay 7. Shara was easy to spot. Crystallis beings literally sparkled, their silicon-based bodies refracting light in prismatic patterns. She was approximately my height, her faceted surface already showing stress fractures in her color patterns. Nervous, then good. At least someone else here had survival instincts. Click was harder to locate until I looked down. Vexcore are insectoid, roughly half a meter tall, with 6 legs and sensory antennae that constantly twitched, processing environmental data. His carapace was a deep obsidian, and his multifaceted eyes reflected everything. And then there was Marcus, leaning against a supply crate, eating something from a crinkly package. Team 7, he asked as I approached. Yes, I'm Zixathar, Squad Leader. I tried to sound authoritative. Marcus. But you can call me Mark. He popped another piece of whatever it was into his mouth. Beef jerky. Want some? I don't. No, thank you. I pulled up the mission parameters on my datapad. We should review survival protocols and equipment distribution. Smart, Shara said, her voice resonating through her crystalline structure. Thoros Prime has 17 distinct hostile ecosystems. I've been studying the geological surveys. The out-of-date geological surveys, I interrupted. The most recent data is 14 months old. Anything could have changed. Probably has, Marcus agreed cheerfully. Deathworlds are dynamic. That's what makes them fun. Fun. I stared at him. You think this is fun? I think it's an opportunity. He crumpled his empty package and made it disappear into one of his numerous pockets. Humans and their obsession with pockets. Look, I know everyone's freaking out about the classification, but Earth is Class 7. For me, this is basically a camping trip with extra credit. Your survival advantage doesn't extend to the rest of us, Shara pointed out, her chimes anxious. Sure it does. That's why we're a team. Marcus pushed off from the crate. I've survived worse than Thoros Prime. Stick with me. Follow basic protocols, and we'll be fine. Basic protocols? Click clicked. His translator rendering it with skepticism. Do not account for acid-spewing megafauna. True, Marcus admitted. That's where improvisation comes in. This was going to be a disaster. We spent the next hour reviewing our equipment. Standard issue was laughable. 1 multi-tool, 1 water purification system, 1 emergency shelter rated for moderate environmental conditions on a Class 3 world, 7 days of compressed rations, and 1 medikit that would probably be empty by day 2. 1 weapon, I said, holding up the plasma cutter. 1 for cadets against Class 3 predators. Makes it interesting, Marcus said. He was checking his boots, apparently more concerned about laces than our imminent mortality. I don't want interesting. I want to survive. Those aren't mutually exclusive. He stood, testing his weight distribution. Zix, your squad leader. right? That means you make the calls. But let me give you some advice from someone who grew up on a world like this. Don't overthink it. Plan for likely scenarios, adapt to unlikely ones. And remember that most predators are just trying to eat, not specifically murder you. That's not reassuring. Wasn't trying to be. Just factual. He picked up a length of polymer cord from the supply kit. Mind if I take this? I can rig some basic alarm systems. Alarm systems? Perimeter detection. Low-tech but effective. Learned it from my dad. I exchanged a glance with Shara. Her surface pattern shifted in certainty. But also something else. Hope, maybe. Take it. I decided. Anything that gives us advance warning is worth it. Cooperation, click observed. Good foundation for survival probability. The transport to Thoros Prime took 8 hours. I spent most of it reviewing every scrap of data I could find about the planet. Shara helped. Her analytical mind processing environmental patterns faster than my datapad could display them. Thoros Prime was a nightmare catalogue of evolutionary one-upmanship. The planet's extreme tectonic activity created constant environmental flux, meaning species adapted quickly or died. The result was a biosphere full of aggressive, territorial, highly efficient predators. The scorched barrens, where we'd be dropped, featured surface temperatures ranging from 45 to 65 degrees Celsius, acidic precipitation pH 3.2 average, subterranean predators that detected movement through vibration, atmospheric oxygen at 18% manageable, but exhausting mineral deposits that interfered with standard scanning equipment. We're going to die. I concluded, statistically improbable. Click corrected. Academy mortality rate for final evaluations, 0.003%. Severe injury rate, 7.2%. Those statistics don't account for Thoros Prime specifically. True. Insufficient data for Class-3 evaluations. This is a new protocol. We're the test run. Shara's chimes went sharp. We're the experiment. Marcus, who'd been napping, opened one eye. You guys are catastrophizing. The Academy wouldn't send us somewhere they didn't think we could survive. It's a test, not an execution. You have a concerning amount of faith in institutional decision-making, I said. Nah, I have faith in us. He sat up, suddenly serious. Look, I know I'm coming off all casual about this, but that's because panic doesn't help. We've got a Valkyrian squad leader with tactical training, a crystallis who can analyze environmental patterns, a Vexcore with enhanced sensory perception, and me, someone who actually knows how to live on planets like this. We're not random. We're designed to complement each other. He was right, I realized, as much as I hated to admit it. Okay, I said, forcing my bioluminescence to steady. Okay, we work together. We follow protocols where applicable, improvise where necessary. Primary objective, reach extraction point. Secondary objective, all team members survive. Agreed. 3 confirmations. The drop was worse than I imagined. They lower. Did us into individual pods coffins, really, and ejected us from orbit. The pods were designed to protect against entry heat and impact. But the experience was still like being thrown into a fusion reactor. While someone shook you violently, my pod hit the ground with bone-rattling force. The hatch hissed open, and heat washed over me like a physical blow. Welcome to Thoreau's prime. I stumbled out onto cracked, reddish soil. The sky was a sullen orange, thick with particulate matter. In the distance, I could see mountain ranges that glowed with internal heat. The air smelled of sulfur and hot metal. Shara's pod had landed 30 meters away. She emerged, her surface already darkening to dissipate heat. Click's pod was closer, and I watched as he scurried out, antennae twitching frantically. Marcus's pod had overshot, landing 100 meters away near a cluster of volcanic rocks. I saw him climb out, stretch, and look around like he was checking into a hotel. Team 7. Sound off, I called into my comm unit. Shara, present. Environmental analysis, hostile. Click, present. Detecting multiple seismic signatures. Subterranean activity confirmed. Marcus here. Nice view. Little hot, but I've had worse. Of course he had. We regrouped at my position, forming a defensive circle while we assessed the situation. The scorched barrens stretched in every direction, flat, open, exposed. Terrible tactical position. We need to move, I decided. Find shelter before nightfall. According to the data, temperatures drop significantly after dark, but predator activity increases. Agreed, Shara chimed. Those rock formations to the east might provide cover. That's 2 kilometers, Click observed. In this heat, with full packs, then we'd better start moving. Marcus was already checking his gear. Zix, take point with me. Shara, your middle eye wants you analyzing the ground composition, looking for unstable areas. Click, rear guard. Your sensory range will give us advance warning if something's following. I'm squad leader. I reminded him. I know. And you made the call to move east. I'm just suggesting marching order based on tactical advantages. He looked at me steadily. But it's your call. He was right. Again. I hated that. That formation works. Move out. The trek was brutal. The heat was oppressive, turning every breath into an effort. My environmental suit's cooling system worked overtime. And I knew Shara was suffering worse. Crystallis beings could crack under thermal stress. We'd covered maybe 1 kilometer when Click's antennae snapped upward. Contact. He clicked urgently. Subterranean, large, 14 meters and closing. Everyone freeze. I hissed. We stood absolutely still. The ground beneath us trembled subtle, but growing stronger. It's hunting by vibration. Marcus whispered, "Don't move." The trembling intensified. I could see the soil beginning to shift 20 meters ahead. Something massive moving just beneath the surface. Then it breached. The creature was segmented, each section armored with overlapping plates of volcanic rock that had fused to its chitin. During its evolution, it was easily 15 meters long, with mandibles that could shear through our suits like paper. Multiple eyes on stalks swiveled, scanning for movement. A Thoreau's burrower. The data files didn't do it justice. Okay, Marcus breathed, barely audible. New plan. On my mark. We run for those rocks. Not before. It hasn't locked onto us yet. If we run, it will definitely lock onto us. I pointed out. Yeah, but in those rocks, It can't burrow. Size advantage becomes our advantage. Trust me. The burrower's eye stalks swiveled in our direction. Marcus shouted. We ran. The ground exploded behind us as the burrower lunged. I heard Shara's crystal chimes spike in panic. Heard Click's legs moving in rapid percussion. Marcus was beside me, matching my pace despite shorter legs. And I realized he was deliberately staying back to keep me in sight. The rocks were 100 meters away, then 50. Then Click screamed a harsh clicking that meant pain. I turned to see him stumbling, one leg caught in shifting soil. The burrower surfaced again, mandibles spread wide, turning toward the fallen stor. Marcus didn't hesitate. He changed direction, sprinting toward Click while pulling something from his pocket. It looked like a compressed chemical flare. "Hey!" he yelled at the burrower, activating the flare. Bright red light and thick smoke erupted. "Over here, you overgrown earthworm." The eye stalks swiveled toward the light source. The burrower reoriented, lunging at Marcus instead. He threw the flare into its open mandibles. The creature's screech was like tearing metal. It thrashed, diving back underground, desperate to escape the chemical irritation. Marcus grabbed Click, threw the stor over his shoulder. Impossible strength. Of humans from high-gravity worlds, and ran for the rock's dot. We made it with seconds to spare, collapsing into a narrow crevasse between two massive formations. The ground shook as the burrower circled our position, but it couldn't reach us here. "Everyone okay?" I gasped. "Leg damaged." Click clicked. "Functional, but impaired. Thermal stress increasing." Shara chimed. "Need to cool down." "I'm good," Marcus said, breathing hard but grinning. "That was fun." "That was not fun," I snapped. "That was nearly fatal." "But it wasn't. That's the important part." He was checking Click's damaged leg. "This looks bad. We need to splint it." While Marcus worked, I forced myself to think like a squad leader instead of a panic-stricken cadet. We'd survived the first encounter, but barely, and this was only our one. The sun was setting, turning the sky deeper orange. Temperature was already dropping. "We camp here tonight," I decided. "It's defensible, and we're all exhausted." "Marcus, can you set up those alarm systems?" "On it." As darkness fell over Thoreau's prime, I watched my team. Shara was already in reduced activity mode, conserving energy. Click was resting his damaged leg, antennae still twitching watchfully. Marcus was stringing polymer cord between rocks, creating a perimeter system that would alert us to any approach. We'd survived day one. Only 6 more days to go. Somewhere in the darkness beyond our shelter, something roared a sound that made the burrower seem small. Marcus looked up, smiled, and said, "Yep, just like home." I was beginning to understand why the galaxy found humans so disturbing, and why we might actually survive this. The roar came again at 0300 hours closer this time. I was on watch, which meant I was the lucky one who got to experience pure existential dread while the others slept. Well, Marcus and Click slept. Shara had entered her rest cycle stasis. Her crystalline form dimmed to almost nothing, conserving energy after the thermal stress of the day. The sound was deep, resonant, felt in the chest rather than just heard. It spoke of something large, territorial, and very interested in our location. Marcus. I whispered into the dark. Marcus, wake up. He was on his feet in less than a second, hand already reaching for the plasma cutter. Soldier reflexes. What have we got? Something big. Been circling for the last 20 minutes. Getting closer. He moved to the edge of our shelter, pressing himself against the volcanic rock, and peered into the darkness. The minimal moonlight from Thoreau's primes to small satellites created more shadows than illumination. Another roar, this one ending in a huffing sound. Breathing. Apex predator, Marcus said quietly. Territorial display. It knows we're here. That's not comforting. Wasn't meant to be. He settled into a crouch, watching the darkness. But here's the thing about apex predators: they don't usually hunt what they don't understand. We're new, strange. It's trying to decide if we're prey, competition, or not worth the effort. How do we convince it we're not worth the effort? Make ourselves look bigger and more trouble than we're worth. He thought for a moment. Wake Click. Don't disturb Shara, she needs the rest. We're going to make some noise. Make noise? That seems counterintuitive. Prey hides. Predators and competition announce themselves. He was already gathering rocks. Trust me on this. 5 minutes later, we stood at the mouth of our shelter, me, Marcus, and a very confused Click, banging rocks together, shouting, and making ourselves as obvious as possible. This is insane, I said while clanging to stones together. Yep, Marcus agreed cheerfully, doing the same. But look, the roaring had stopped. I strained my enhanced vision and thought I caught movement in the distance, something massive. Withdrawing. It's leaving. Decided we're too much trouble. Apex predators are efficient, they don't waste energy on uncertain fights. Marcus set down his rocks. We should be clear for the rest of the night. It'll find easier prey. We returned to our shelter. Click immediately curled into a defensive ball, exhausted by the stress. Marcus settled back into his sleeping position as if nothing had happened. How did you know that would work? I asked. Grew up doing it. We had to scare off ridge stalkers on my colony pretty regularly. Same principle: show confidence, make noise, convince them you're not worth it. He yawned. Get some rest, Zix. Tomorrow's going to be harder. How could it possibly be harder? He just smiled and closed his eyes. Morning on Thoreau's prime was announced by the planet trying to cook us alive. Temperature spiked 30 degrees within an hour of sunrise. Our environmental suits kicked into maximum cooling mode, and I could hear the strain in their systems. Shara emerged from stasis looking fractured literally. New stress lines had appeared across her surface overnight. I require mineral supplementation. She chimed weakly. My structure is degrading. The geological data mentioned silicon-rich deposits near thermal vents. I said, pulling up my data pad. There should be some 3 kilometers northeast. That's the direction we need to travel anyway. Marcus pointed out, checking Click's splintered leg. How's the mobility? Adequate. Click clicked. Reduced speed, but functional. We broke camp quickly, dividing the gear among us. I noticed Marcus took extra weight without being asked, compensating for Click's injury. The landscape shifted as we traveled. The flat barrens gave way to broken terrain ridges of volcanic glass, ravines that radiated heat, and scattered pools of liquid that definitely weren't water. The air shimmered with thermal distortion. Contact, Click announced suddenly. Ahead, 300 meters, large, moving slowly. We dropped into cover behind a ridge of obsidian. Carefully, I raised my head to look. The creature was enormous, easily 20 meters long, quadrupedal, with armored plating that looked like cooled lava. Aethero's apex hunter, the same species that had circled our camp, or one of its relatives, it was feeding on something, tearing into the carcass of another creature with methodical efficiency. We need to detour, I whispered. Give it wide berth. Agreed, Marcus said. That thing's in feeding mode. Most dangerous time to encounter a predator. They're possessive of kills. We began backing away slowly. Shara moved with particular care, knowing her crystalline structure could catch light and draw attention. We'd moved maybe 50 meters when the apex hunter's head snapped up. It wasn't looking at us. It was looking behind us. Click, I said urgently. What's behind us? His antennae twitched frantically. Multiple contacts, smaller, pack hunters. 30 meters and closing fast. Razor raptors, Marcus identified, somehow knowing. Ambush predators. They herd prey toward larger predators, then feed on the scraps. We're being herded toward the apex hunter? Yep. I hate this planet. The first razor raptor burst from cover, a sleek, six-limbed predator with blade-like protrusions along its spine. Then another, then 5 more. Defensive circle. I shouted. Shara's center, everyone face outward. We formed up just as the pack hit us. Marcus moved like violence choreographed to music. The plasma cutter hummed in his hand, more tool than weapon. But he wielded it with brutal efficiency. A raptor lunged at him. He sidestepped and brought the cutter down across its flank. Superheated plasma met organic tissue with a hiss, and the smell of burning meat. Click. Despite his damaged leg, used his mandibles as weapons, catching a raptor's foreleg and shearing through chitin with surprising force. I had a rock, just a rock, but when a raptor came at me, instinct took over. I brought the rock down on its skull with every ounce of strength I had. The impact jarred my entire arm, but the raptor went down. The apex hunter. Shara chimed urgently. It's moving toward us. Of course it was. We were fighting near its kill. We were competition, new plan. Marcus shouted over the chaos. We run toward the thermal vents. The big one won't follow to hot even for it. The vents are 2 kilometers away. Then we'd better move fast. Click. On my back, you can't run fast enough. Before Click could protest, Marcus had scooped him up. Zix. Shara, run. I'll cover rear. We ran. Behind us. The apex hunter roared, a sound of pure territorial rage. The ground shook with its footfalls. The razor raptors scattered, unwilling to face the larger predator. But the apex hunter was locked onto us now. We'd challenged it near its kill. The terrain rose sharply, becoming a maze of thermal vents that belched superheated steam. The temperature spiked beyond my suit's capacity to compensate. Warning lights flashed across my datapad. Keep moving. Marcus urged. Into the vent field. We plunged into the maze of steam and heat. Visibility dropped to meters. My cooling system screamed alarms. Beside me, Shara was beginning to glow from absorbed heat, a bad sign. Crystallis beings could shatter from thermal shock. The apex hunter's roar came from behind us, but it sounded more distant. Marcus was right. It wasn't following into the extreme heat. But we couldn't stay here either. Through there, I spotted a passage between two major vents. If we can get through, we'll be past the thermal field. We squeezed through a gap barely wide enough for Marcus's shoulders. Steam scalded any exposed skin. My suit reported multiple minor breaches. We emerged on the far side, into blessedly cooler air and stopped. We were standing at the edge of a ravine, 30 meters deep, walls of volcanic glass, with a mineral-rich stream running through the bottom. The silicon deposits, Shara said weakly. I need. She took one step forward and collapsed. Her crystalline structure had developed catastrophic fractures. She was literally falling apart. Click. Watch for hostiles, Marcus ordered. Already moving to Shara. Zix, help me get her down to that stream. Those minerals might stabilize her structure. Down there. How? Marcus was already testing the wall. It's glass sharp, but climbable. We rope ourselves together. Take it slow. I don't think she can wait for slow. Then we do it fast. He looked at me, and his expression was completely serious. I know this is terrifying. I know you're thinking of all the ways this can go wrong. But right now, Shara's dying. We can save her, but we have to move. Can you do this? I looked at my team. Click. Damaged but watching our perimeter. Shara, fracturing further every second. Marcus, somehow still confident despite everything. Yes, I said. Tell me what to do. We rigged a harness from polymer cord. Marcus apparently knew 17 different knots, which seemed excessive until they proved useful. We secured Shara, then ourselves together. The descent was controlled terror. The volcanic glass walls were sharp enough to cut through our gloves. One wrong move could send all of us tumbling. But Marcus talked us through each step, his voice calm and certain. Left foot down 6 inches. Good. Weight shift. Right hand to that protrusion. Perfect. Just like that. We reached the bottom in what felt like hours, but was probably 12 minutes. The stream water was mineral-rich, cloudy with dissolved silicon. We lowered Shara into it, submerging her damaged sections. Will this work? I asked. Crystallis structures can self-repair in the right conditions, Marcus said, pulling out the medikit. The dissolved minerals should integrate into her matrix. But it'll take time. Time we don't have. The extraction point is still. I checked my data pad. 112 kilometers away. 4 days left. Then we hold here for 6 hours. Let Shara stabilize and push hard after. Marcus was checking his own injuries. I saw burns on his arms from the steam. Cuts from the glass. Zix, we're doing okay. We're injured, behind schedule, and barely surviving. Yeah. But we're surviving. That's more than some teams. He started treating his burns with quick efficiency. The Academy wouldn't have dropped us here if they didn't think we could make it. Every challenge has a solution. We just have to find it. Your optimism is exhausting. Part of my charm. He grinned, then winced as he touched a particularly bad burn. Okay, that one hurt. Click descended the wall more quickly. Insectoid leg structure made climbing easier. He immediately began scouting the ravine floor, antennae processing every detail. This location is defensible, he reported. Single access point above. Water source. Thermal vents would mask our heat signature from aerial predators. Good scouting, I acknowledged. Set perimeter alerts. Marcus, how's Shara? Stable for now. The minerals are integrating. See? He pointed to the fractures, which were indeed slowly sealing. Give her a few hours and she'll be functional again. We settled in to wait. Marcus prepared food, actual cooked food, using a thermal vent to heat our rations. It was barely better than eating them cold, but the psychological effect of a hot meal was significant. Question, I said between bites. Your colony, the Class-3 world. What was that like? Marcus was quiet for a moment. Hard, beautiful, deadly. We lost people not often, but it happened. You learned real fast to respect the environment, work together, and never take survival for granted. He poked at the fire. My dad was head of security. He taught me everything: how to read predator behavior, build shelters, find water, fight when necessary. He always said humans survived Earth by being adaptable, and that adaptability worked anywhere. Do you miss it? Every day. But I wanted to see the galaxy, meet other species, test myself. He looked at me. That's why I joined the academy, and why I'm not scared of Thoreau's prime. I've seen worse, survived worse. This, he gestured at the ravine. This is manageable. I filed 3 safety complaints before this drop. I admitted. I know. Read them. They were well researched. You read my complaints? I read everything about my team. Wanted to know who I'd be trusting my life to. He smiled. You're cautious, analytical, thorough. Those are good leadership traits. But sometimes you have to trust that caution prepared you enough to take risks when necessary. Before I could respond, Click's antennae snapped to attention. Contact. Above. Multiple signatures. We looked up to see figures at the ravine edge. Cadets. Another team. Team 4. One of them called down. We saw your descent. Are you injured? We're functional. I called back. Medical situation. Holding position for treatment. We have a compromised team member. Requesting assistance. I looked at Marcus. His face was carefully neutral. If we help them, we delay our own schedule. I said quietly. If we don't help them, they might not make it. He countered. That's not on protocol. That's on us. Helping could get us all killed. Could. Or it could mean 8 cadets survive instead of 4. I looked at my team. Click was watching me, waiting. Shara, partially recovered, had emerged from the stream and was listening. Squad leader. My decision. We help, I said. But calculated risk. We don't compromise our own survival. Agreed, Marcus nodded. Agreed. We called up to Team 4. Lower your injured team member. We have medical supplies and shelter. The next hour was organized chaos. Team 4's injured member of Valarian with a badly damaged wing was lowered down. Their squad leader, a hexapod named Krita, climbed down with surprising agility. Caught by a predator on day 2, she explained while Marcus examined the Valerian's wing. Barely escaped. We've been running on minimal rest, trying to reach extraction. Your route? I asked. She pulled out her data pad. I compared it to ours. You're going around the scorched fields, I observed. That adds 40 kilometers. Direct route goes through an active predator migration path. We'd never survive. Marcus looked up from his work. Actually, if we time it right, we could use the migration. Predators focused on each other, not on us. Move through during peak chaos. That's insane, Krita said flatly. Little bit, Marcus agreed. But it's faster and more efficient than the long route. 8 of us moving together have better odds than 4, and 4 separately. I pulled up the ecological data. He was right. There was a 6-hour window during migration peak, when predator attention would be maximally divided. We'd have to move fast, I said. No stops, no delays. Can your team manage that? Krita asked. I looked at my battered, injured, exhausted team. Click with his damaged leg. Shara still recovering. Marcus with burns and cuts. Yes, I said. Because sometimes leadership meant believing before you were certain. Then we moved together. Krita decided. Combined teams. We'll split leadership. You handle tactical. I'll handle logistics. We spent the next 2 hours planning, resting, and preparing. Shara's recovery accelerated, with her structure nearly fully repaired. The Valerian's wing was splintered and stabilized. At R5. We climbed out of the ravine. Cadets. Exhausted but determined. The scorched fields lay ahead, already visible as a heat-distorted plain where massive creatures moved in deliberate patterns. Migration, everyone understand the plan? I asked. 7 confirmations. Then let's survive this. We moved into the fields at sunset. When the migration reached peak intensity, massive herbivores, if that term applied to creatures that occasionally ate each other, moved in herds. Predators circled, looking for weak targets. We were neither. We were ghosts, moving through chaos. A predator charged past us, focused on a fleeing herbivore. We flattened ourselves to the ground, let it pass. We navigated between feuding territorial bulls, using their confrontation as cover. Click's sensory perception was invaluable, giving us seconds of warning for approaching threats. Shara analyzed the ground, finding stable paths through the churning mass. The combined teams worked like a single organism. And Marcus moved through it all like this was exactly what he was meant to do. Guiding, adjusting, keeping everyone together. We emerged on the far side 4 hours later, filthy, terrified, but alive. Distance to extraction? Krita asked. I checked. 63 kilometers. 2 days. We can make it. Marcus said, for the first time. I believed him. But Pharaoh's Prime wasn't done with us yet. As we made camp that night, the ground began to shake. Not from predators. From the planet itself. Seismic activity. Shara chimed, alarmed. Significant. This is... The mountain in the distance erupted. Fire and ash exploded into the sky. The shock wave hit seconds later, knocking us off our feet. Volcanic eruption. I shouted over the roar. Full eruption. Marcus was already on his feet, scanning the horizon. Pyroclastic flow incoming. We have maybe 20 minutes before it reaches us. 20 minutes to go where? Creta demanded. Higher ground. That ridge system northeast if we can get above the flow path. We survive. That's 15 kilometers. Then we'd better run. We grabbed essential gear and ran behind us. Furrows prime burned.